Part 4. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 31. Chapter 31. The cabbage was given to the pig. It was you who hurt your leg. It's not the same. Yanchuan took a deep breath, but his eyes were wandering, and he didn't dare to look at Ayu now. Ayu raised her mouth slightly. Then, can I sleep with you tonight? Ayu asked seriously. Sushui was getting excited after hearing this, but her eyes were covered by someone from behind. He picked her up and walked out. I want to see, Sushui struggled. Fu Xiao. Little fool, this is not something you can see. You will go blind if you see it. Fu Xiao threatened her. Why is this little girl so gossipy and so blind? Yan Sushui suddenly became quiet. Blind? My third uncle also said that I would be blind before. But I'm not blind. Sushui looked confused. Why am I blind? The last time my third uncle got married, my third aunt cried and screamed at night, shouting for help and shouting for help. My third aunt was crying, and she was crying terribly. I became anxious when I heard this at the foot of the wall, and secretly went out. I asked the village chief for help. I told the village chief that my third uncle wanted to kill my third aunt, and the village chief led 7 or 8 uncles and kicked open the door. Sushui's face darkened as she spoke. The little man sighed deeply. Third aunt doesn't know good people's hearts. She called me a fool and said I was going to go blind. Humph, I obviously saved her, but she actually cried in anger. Humph. Xiao Sushui looked depressed. She saved someone, but she didn't even say a word of thanks. The little guy's face was full of resentment. By the way, you haven't told me why you are blind yet. After saying that, she pulled Fu Xiao with a petrified face and asked. Fu Xiao? People do things. It's a miracle that you can survive till now. Seeing her raised mouth, Fu Xiao hurriedly coaxed, maybe she's afraid that her eyes will be hurt if she listens too much. The little girl wanted to ask again, but Fu Xiao whispered. What do you see there? The little girl's attention was instantly diverted. Looking along Fu Xiao's slender hand, he saw a looming glow of fiery red. It is particularly conspicuous in the night, a dot the size of a fingernail, flickering on and off. Xiao Sushui's face suddenly turned pale. Is there a ghost? She is a spirit of speech and knows that there are ghosts and gods in the world. But in all these years, you have never seen a ghost? Fu Xiao breathed a sigh of relief, and finally stopped asking blind people. Before he could relax, he saw the little girl quickly picking up a fist-sized pebble from the ground. Going straight towards the flickering will-o'-the-wisp. Fu Xiao? Fu Xiao held her under his arm and ran away. In the distance, it seems that you can still hear roaring sounds. Oh my god, ghosts can still scream. Sushui was shocked. Fu Xiao was also shocked. She has only been here for a day, but this day has refreshed the naughty child's knowledge. This day has been extremely exciting. Fu Xiao sighed deeply, touched her head and sighed with a look on his face. To be able to survive until now, your family has put in a lot of effort. Sushui glanced at him. It sounded like good words, but why did she always feel something was wrong? Miss Fu, the new house at home has not been built yet. I'm afraid I have to live in the old house. Ms. Lin was a little embarrassed. She obviously didn't feel this way in front of Ayu, but she always felt afraid to raise her head when facing Miss Fu. Feel. It doesn't matter. Fu Xiao said with a slight smile. Sushui lives in a separate room, so Miss Fu will live with Sushui. Ms. Lin put the brand new bedding in the house into Sushui's house. Sushui was the best house in the family. Fu Xiao was startled and was about to refuse. Then he heard Ms. Lin say, Ayu and I share a room, and the children and husband share a room. If the bed is not large enough, we may have to make a bunk on the floor. Mom, let me lay the floor. Dad and my brothers are young and the cold at night will hurt them, Yanchuan said in a muffled voice. Then I'll lay out a few more layers of straw, although it's hot today, it's a bit cool at night. Yanchuan nodded. Why hasn't Dad come back yet? Maybe they were entangled in the old house, right? How could they not cry twice when they saw Dad? In the past few days, I heard that Grandma can get up and get out of bed. I'm afraid Grandma stopped me. Yan Lang rolled his eyes. Why did Lei he didn't kill her? Grandma needs to walk less. It would be a pity if she accidentally breaks her leg, Sushui muttered, and Fujuxiao glanced at her. This silly kid thinks that a few bad words can relieve his anger. She is still a child after all. At night, Yan Sushui was jumping up and down on the bed, extremely happy. Sushui, I still want friends, Yanchuan whispered outside the door. He was usually on guard against the boys in the village, fearing that his cabbage would be accidentally eaten. Now that Miss Fu appears, there is no need for him to stop her. How could Yanchuan know at this moment that in the future he would like to beat himself to death at this moment? Sister Xiao Xiao, why are you so far away from me? Sister Xiao Xiao, why don't you take off your clothes when you sleep? Sushui undressed her hair, her face was round and her eyes were clear and bright. Fu Xiaoxiao took a deep breath before frowning. No one had ever been so rude to him, let alone sleeping with him. Even if it's a child. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 32. Chapter 32 Questions from the Old Mansion. I'm afraid you'll my quilt. Go to bed quickly. You won't grow taller after staying up late. Fu Xiaoxiao pulled the quilt and covered her in it, including her head and feet. Sushui said dully, Sister Xiaoxiao, will you leave here? Fu Xiaoxiao hummed softly. I will leave when people from my clan come to look for it. She came for the weapons and food, but the officials did not fight with the people. Now that the food was owned, she would not stay any longer. I just didn't expect that the bad thing was a little girl covered in milk. She thought about it countless times. If Juhu was too tough, she would take it by force. If the other party gives in, she will give more compensation. But the other person is a 3.5-year-old baby who talks about everything except being unreasonable. She was afraid that if she robbed him, the other person would lie on the ground and roll around. She can't do such a thing yet. Fu Xiaoxiao lay on the bed and sighed deeply. The sudden, white feet came straight towards her face. Fu Xiaoxiao turned around and saw that the little girl who was sleeping peacefully had occupied the entire bed. Hey, what a sin! At this moment, Sushui could not hear her resentment. Instead, I dreamed about the plot in the original book. The male protagonist in the original book was born unlucky. He drank water stuck in his teeth, broke his legs while walking, and faced kidnapping from time to time. Furthermore, he has a special status and has been hunted down over the years. Until one year, I met the heroine. The original heroine appeared in Xiaoshan town when she was 3.5 years old. It was also at that time that I met the male protagonist and helped him solve his urgent problem. As a result, the male protagonist had good luck for half a month. Since then, the male protagonist has paid attention to her. The biggest male counterpart in the original book is His Royal Highness the Prince. His Royal Highness grew up on the battlefield and was highly respected by the soldiers. General Xie tried his best to assist. The male protagonist has been trying to drive a wedge between the prince and General Xie for this reason. Finally, he succeeded. General Xie had a daughter who was accidentally lost. When she was found, she had become a military prostitute and was found among the prince's army. For this reason, General Xie turned against the prince. In the end, the prince's villain failed to seize the throne, and the male protagonist became the regent. Then the sweet story of the regent and Fubao begins. Sushui smashed her mouth, kicked her legs, and glared at Fu Xiaoxiao's cheek. A footprint was instantly left on the bright white cheek. Fu Xiaoxiao gritted his teeth and said, "How presumptuous! Yan Sushui." Bah, the little girl blew bubbles from her nose. "I really owe you. What a sin I did in my last life to meet you. Be careful not to get married in the future." Fu Xiaoxiao made a cold face and silently rolled out of bed and made a bunk on the floor. "Whoever marries you in the future is probably blind and blind. In this life, no one has ever dared to let her lay the floor. What if you gnash your teeth in anger? Who can have trouble with a 3.5-year-old baby?" Fu Xiaoxiao sighed resignedly. She thought she would keep her eyes open until dawn. But listening to the snoring of the little baby, she felt a rare sense of peace and fell into a deep sleep without realizing it. The second day, Yan Sushui woke up to the sound of roosters crowing. Opening his eyes, Fu Xiaoxiao was no longer in the room. The chubby little baby rubbed his eyes and yawned sleepily before going out. "Sister Xiaoxiao, why did you get up so early?" "I had a dream last night. I dreamed that a dog bit me. I kicked the dog all night," the little girl said in a tone of voice. He was soft and didn't notice the angry and dumbfounded Fu Xiaoxiao in front of him. "Follow me to my old house after breakfast later." Yan Hansheng took a sip of porridge. Pumpkin was added to the porridge, which was very sweet. "I never thought I could live such a good life in my life." What's more, in this famine year, Yan Hansheng was satisfied as long as he had food at home and a house that could shelter him from the wind and rain. "Dad, you're not going to deliver food to the old house, are you?" Yan Ming stood up with a dark face. "How can you not? Your father is not a fool. Besides, the village chief distributed 400 caddies to the old house this time, so why should he ask me to borrow food?" Yan Hansheng rolled his eyes at him. "The old house has 8 people and 400 pounds, so it can't last for a while. Your grandpa came out to pee last night, smoking and peeing at the same time. I don't know which brought your grandpa a brick. Your grandpa's head was bleeding profusely. Hey, after the family was separated, I had to go and have a look to prevent outsiders from gossiping." The porridge in Yan Sushui's bowl spurted out. Cough 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 cough. Yan Sushui's face turned red and she looked at Fu Xiaoxiao with tears in her eyes. "You kid, you can choke yourself even if you drink porridge." Mrs. Lin hurriedly patted her on the back, and Ayu also followed Mrs. Lin's example and looked at her with concern. Ayu has gotten better, but she is still afraid of men. "It's okay, mother, Sushui is in a hurry." Sushui felt guilty, and her face was covered with sweat. What kind of will-o'-the-wisp was that last night? It was her grandfather's cigarette butt? But the old house is quite far away from here. Does her grandfather come here to urinate? Why does he look like he's squatting at home? After Sushui finished drinking in 2 or 3 gulps, he jumped up and down and followed his brothers to the old house. Fu Xiaoxiao had nothing to do and wanted to wait for someone to pick him up, so he went with him. Walking to the gate of the old house, I happened to see Mr. Chen, who was cursing and looking mean. "You are a heartless thing. My parents are still hungry. I have food in stock, but I am watching my parents starve to death. What an unfilial thing." Lao Chen cursed the streets early in the morning. Yan Hansheng stood at the door a little embarrassed. "My life is so miserable. I have raised this family in vain. I am an unworthy descendant. God, please open your eyes and see." Ah, old Chen stepped on the upturned stone, and everyone heard the sound of his tailbone clicking. "Mother, mother." Mrs. Chen was holding her child, trembling with fright, and hurriedly helped her mother-in-law up. Mother-in-law was struck by lightning and lay there for more than half a month, and she just turned around. She is the niece of her mother-in-law. Only if her mother-in-law is good can she live a good life. Otherwise, the whole family would prefer the 3rd-bedroom apartment. Lao Chen is also biased, but at least he is concerned that he is her niece and can take advantage of her. Fu Xiaoxiao looked at Yan Sushui suspiciously. She just said yesterday that the old lady was going to break her leg. The scholar Lady Wu stood at the door holding her 2-year-old son in her arms and glanced coldly at the eldest daughter's children. When I saw that their faces were red and their teeth were white, they were in great spirits and their clothes were brand new, I suddenly became sad. What are you doing standing still at the door? Come in quickly, it's time for breakfast. The old man walked out of the house, smiling with no apparent barrier on his face. It was as if eviction of the big house from the house had never happened. Yan Hansheng frowned slightly. He just refused to borrow food from his father yesterday. Thank you, Grandpa, we've had breakfast. Yan Lang pulled his younger brother and sister, looking distant and distant. Where is your elder brother? The old man smoked a cigarette, with a white cloth around his forehead, and blood could be faintly seen. We are building a house at home, and we can't live without it. My eldest brother has to watch it. Yan Lang's words made Xiao Chen even more unhappy. The purpose of driving out the big house is to reduce the burden and live a better life. It can be calculated once, the better it is for the other side to get past it. Even Mr. Lin, who used to fawn over her, has now become more glamorous and will soon be able to live in a big house. The old man touched the blood on his head. Fu Xiaoxiao glanced at the little baby. The little baby looked at the sky and the ground with a serious face without changing its expression, but not at Grandpa. Fu Xiaoxiao chuckled. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 33. Chapter 33. As powerful as Sui Sui. If you need help, if you need anything, just let me know. We are all part of the same family, the old man said calmly. Master, we are different. We are not from the same household. Yan Lang raised his eyebrows and said, not afraid of his grandfather's black face. Little Chen outside the door invited a doctor, and sure enough, Lao Chen was injured again and had to lie down for at least a month. The veins on the old man's forehead are slightly popping up. He has really done something wrong. Since the big house was divided, his family has been in great misfortune. Langir, you are still young and ignorant. Your third uncle is a scholar, and he will take the exam next year. Even in times of famine, a village can be saved by having a candidate. Yan Lang's face suddenly darkened. It was obvious that his brother could also study back then. Even if the master does not restrain himself, he has to teach him. It is because the eldest brother is given too much work every day at home, which delays him. Even refused to give the eldest brother the money to take the exam. Sushui rolled her eyes. Passed the exam? Dream on. The old man was smoking a cigarette, and then waved to Yan Sushui. Sushui, come here. The little girl trembled. Grandpa knew that she hit him on the head. Unexpectedly, the old man handed her a chopstick. Ear, break it off. Sushui glanced at the chopsticks, reached out to take them, and folded them gently, and the chopsticks broke with a sound. Do you know what this means? Old Yan looked deeply at Yan Sushui. As long as she promised to come back, Mrs. Lin, who loved her daughter, would definitely come back. The newly built big house, the food, and the 3 cartloads of gifts can be sent back to the old house. It means that a chopstick is easy to break, Sushui said crisply. The old man said with a smile on his face, that's right. As he said that, he handed Yan Sushui a pair of chopsticks. Those chopsticks required Sushui's 2 hands to close together to hold them. Yan Lang looked at the old man with a dark face. Hand clenched his fists, his eyes filled with hatred. Yesterday I failed to borrow money and food, but I haven't given up yet today. Fu Xiaoxiao crossed his arms and suddenly felt a burning gaze. I saw a man in green sweeping her face with his eyes and smiling slightly at her, seemingly kindly. Fu Xiaoxiao sneered and then turned his eyes. She knew that she had good looks, and even though she was only 13 years old, people often showed kindness to her. Moreover, her clothes are low-key and luxurious. I thought that this village was full of bumpkins, but it turns out there are some who know the stuff. Uncle Yan was looked down upon by Fu Xiaoxiao, and a flash of displeasure flashed in his eyes. But as a scholar after all, he will hide his temper and leave with a gentle smile. At this moment, Yan Sushui is holding a pair of chopsticks, under the expectant eyes of the old man. Use of strength. We're going to keep breaking up, right? Do you know what this means? It means that our family works together. Before he finished speaking, there was a clicking sound. See? A pair of chopsticks was cut into two pieces directly under her little hands. Grandpa, what did you say? Sushui raised her head and looked at him with an innocent face. Grandpa, do you want to say that as long as I am strong enough, I can get rid of those burdens? Thank you, Grandpa, Sushui understands. Thank you, Grandpa, for your teaching. The little girl threw the chopsticks away and happily went back to hold Fu Xiaoxiao's hand. Fu Xiaoxiao was a little confused and pinched her soft fingers. He is chubby and has cute little nests. He is round and cute, soft, and boneless. How come you have so much strength? Seeing the old man's aggrieved and depressed expression, Fu Xiaoxiao's lips curled up slightly. All calculations are just paper tigers in the face of strong strength. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 34. Chapter 34, Greed Leads to Trouble. What did Dad ask us to do? Just to watch my sister break chopsticks. Yan Ming held his second brother's hand, looking confused. Yan Hansheng pursed his lips slightly. He was the only one who could see the depression on his father's face. Turning his head and taking a look, Mr. Yan was holding a pair of chopsticks and breaking them vigorously. His face turned red as he broke the chopsticks, but the chopsticks were not broken at all. Then he squatted on the ground and looked at Sushui's broken chopsticks, with a look of doubt on his life. Yan Hansheng couldn't hold it back and showed his white teeth in a grin. After so many years of living, this was the first time he saw his father deflated. Every time his father used various excuses to pressure him with filial piety, he had no choice but to bear it. Now, all found. Sushui, why are you so strong? Why didn't you know this before? Yan Lang pinched her soft cheeks, and the little girl's almond-shaped eyes suddenly widened, looking fierce. The queen said she is too strong to get married. Let me control her, so as not to crush her future husband to death, Sushui said honestly. My mother also said that she should hide it until she gets married, otherwise, she will scare her future husband. Fu Xiaoxiao's cheeks trembled. For some reason, he always felt chilly on his body. Don't be afraid. If you can't get married, we will raise ears. Yan Lang patted his chest. In half a month, Yan Lang grew taller. Yan Ming immediately raised his hand. I will support you too, I will support you too. That won't work. I can't harm my own people. The little man sighed deeply and walked away with a melancholy look on his face. What happened to your fiancé? You brought him so much trouble. Fu Xiaoxiao was worried about her future fiancé. Then save more dowry for your sister and buy one. When the time comes, I'll buy the one who looks good. Yan Ming muttered, well, he wants to make more money. Buy a man for your sister. Fu Xiaoxiao rubbed the little girl's head and passed by the threshing floor. He saw all the men in the village practicing in the threshing floor. It's strange. These weapons look extremely sharp and brand new. Why didn't Hefeng village use them when they attacked our village? The village chief took a knife and blew the hair off. Perhaps you didn't expect the boat to capsize in the sewer, right? Yan Chuan said, standing beside him. Fu Xiaoxiao's face turned gloomy because he was afraid that if he took it out, it would be revealed and he would be sought for revenge. He gritted his teeth and looked at the little cute baby, sighing deeply. Unlucky. Sushui is here? How come Miss Fu is here too? Are you still used to living in the Yan family? We have released your information, and your family should be looking for you soon. The village chief put down the knife, and his eyes froze when he saw Sushui. Shining. This child is really lucky, and he is always on target. Thank you, village chief, for everything except at night, there was a little fat guy who always squeezed her under the bed. Fu Xiaoxiao frowned slightly and said. His face was pale, and he was much more distant and indifferent than when he faced Yan Sushui. The village chief was a little reserved in front of her. If you need anything, just let us know. After saying that, he couldn't help but hide. This girl's aura was so strong that he couldn't even raise his head in front of her. I don't know who can raise a girl like this. Fu Xiaoxiao nodded slightly. Linshui village is planning to build houses to the east of our village. There will be about 30 or 40 families. This is already the entire population of Linshui village. Surviving. The village chief sighed. A middle-aged man in his 30s walked out of the threshing floor. The man said in a deep voice, the boy who caused trouble and harmed the village ran away before Hefeng village attacked the village. The man's eyes were red, his eyes were filled with hatred. Obviously someone is chasing him, and we are kind enough to stay overnight. How dare he ask the whole village to protect him from disaster? If he just said something when he left, Linshui village would be able to save more people. The man held his head in pain. His father was the village chief, and the village had been without food for 3 days, so he let the young man in for food. His father is also the culprit. His father died in the massacre, and his wife and children also died in the massacre. The only person left alive in his family is himself. The man took a deep breath and forced back tears. That young man is a sinner, and those in the Yan family are not good people either. Yes, Yan Chunyua also has to pay the price. She brought trouble to the village, and the whole disaster was caused by them. The villagers of Linshui village were also on the threshing floor. Regardless of men, women, old or young, they worked harder than everyone in Wangjia village. They have a blood feud, and they understand the power of the weapons in their hands. Everyone in Linshui village has hatred in their eyes, even the children. Sushui frowned slightly. Fu Xiaoxiao crossed his arms, his eyes indifferent and cold. Isn't it the greedy you who deserve to be hated? Yan Chunyua's family, because of greed, took the money and brought the man back to stay. Do you think he is a big injustice just to enter the village at such a high cost? Either he is a big grievance, or someone is chasing him, and he needs to hide in the crowd to hide himself. Otherwise, in this disaster year when food is more precious than money, what reason does he have to give you a large amount of food? That young man is a disaster. It can be said that neither Chunyua nor you are innocent. It's you who lead the wolf into the house. Didn't anyone in the village stop him that day? Fu Xiaoxiao chuckled. Human nature is always so dirty. The expressions of everyone in Linshui village ranged from angry to guilty within a few words of his. The man took a deep breath and closed his eyes. How could no one stop him that day? Because there was no food in the village, the old people spontaneously went on a hunger strike, wanting to leave their chance of survival to the young. But on that day, they came to the village entrance with their broken bodies and forcibly stopped them from entering the village. Such a generous move must have a plan. Yan Chunyua is still from Wangjia village, and Wangjia village is also short of food. Why is Wangjia village not allowing them to enter? There must be some conspiracy. In this troubled year, we must not cause disaster. The hungry and dizzy old man burst into tears. But everyone became anxious when they saw the carts of food, and no one listened. The man cried silently, as if all his energy had been drained away. No one is innocent, no one is innocent. There were faint sounds of crying from the crowd. Yeah, they themselves are not innocent either. If I hadn't coveted the young man's food, why would I have lured the wolf into the house? With such heavy interests, how can there be no risks? Yan Chunyua's greed harmed Linshui village, so what's the difference between them? Yan Chunyua's husband was the master of Xiashan town. After Linshui village was massacred, people came from the Yamen. Then Yan Chunyua and his family were taken away. I'm afraid I also know that if I stay, I will be torn apart by everyone in Linshui village. We made mistakes, but even spring flowers have to pay the price. There are countless refugees outside now. Yan Chunyua, a man in the county government, can still save his family. If we go to town, I'm afraid your village will be wiped out, the head of Wangjia village said coldly. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 35. Chapter 35. Sushui enters the ancestral hall. We now have food and weapons. Before winter comes, we can build up walls and weapons to have a chance to protect ourselves. Even if it's not for ourselves, we have to do it for the children who have finally survived. The village chief looked at Lin. The children in Shukan had dull faces and were frightened by the massacre. Isn't it that you merged into Wangjiakan just to leave heir for your family? Don't hurt these poor children. It's so chaotic outside now. After the incident in Linshui village, many homeless people came to take advantage of the situation. Wangjiakan has also seen many strangers recently. The village chief sends people to guard the village entrance every day. It's good to practice martial arts. Beat the bad guys. Sushui said suddenly. Locusts. The little girl muttered, then refused to say anything more. The village chief stood very close, but his face turned pale when he heard these words. When he was young, he saw locusts once. Everywhere they went was desolate, and they ate everything. Fu Xiaoxiao frowned slightly. He had been on the front line all year round and knew that the war on the front line was tight. Moreover, due to the continuous natural disasters in recent years, food in Dai Viet has decreased rapidly, and food in the border areas is in short supply. What if there are really locusts? Fu Xiaoxiao's expression tightened slightly. Hefeng village is gone, and you have avenged your great revenge. If you miss Yan Chunyua's family, don't worry. The town is in chaos now, and you will have to come back sooner or later. You also have to think about your children and have a safe place as soon as possible. Here, when it snows, it will be even more difficult than summer. The village chief took a puff of dry cigarette and sighed when he saw that the group of people had calmed down a bit. The hatred of destroying families and slaughtering villages is all a blood feud. Yanxia, I'm afraid it won't be easy in the village from now on. In the past, it was pitiful that Yan Hanzhen's family had to clean up and leave home, but now it is a good thing. A group of men silently wiped away tears. The tragic situation in Linshui village is something that people will never forget in their lifetime. Just thinking about it gives me chills. That night was everyone's nightmare. The men who resisted at the front and defended their homeland were all brutally killed. And women. There was not a single piece of good skin on her body, it was completely ruined and she was left naked on the road. With no gleam in his eyes, he lay on the ground and watched the people in front of him changing. Some died on the spot in the unclean and filthy place. Some barely survived, with no good skin left on their bodies, but in the end, they rushed into the sea of fire. How can we forget this kind of hatred? Hate myself, hate Yan Chunyua, and even more hate Black Wind Village. Fu Xiaoxiao thought of the news he had received a few days ago, glanced at the little man leaning against him, and couldn't help but sigh. And the people in Hefeng village have yellowish eyes and curly hair, and most of them look like barbarians. Wang Chuan Mansion is close to the border, and barbarians often invade. If it is true. Fu Xiaoxiao's eyes flickered, and he glanced around. Everyone was seen trembling. If this is the case, I'm afraid the other party will still have allies. Even the barbarians are very vengeful, and winter is coming soon, and there will be a shortage of food for the war ahead. Before Fu Xiaoxiao finished speaking, the elderly Li Zheng sat down on the ground with a pale face. If they are really barbarians, they will definitely come to take revenge and rob them, Li Zheng's voice trembled. Is this true? The village chief asked urgently. Now the villagers of Linshui village stopped feeling sorry for themselves and immediately looked at her nervously. Fu Xiaoxiao crossed his arms with a look of indifference on his face. It was such an alienating scene. She was born with a baby on her foot. Suddenly, from the clouds in the sky, the moon pulls down the dust. Fu Xiaoxiao glanced at her and decided to help this baby once. Suddenly he said with a dark face, there have been a lot of troubles caused by the refugees recently, but there has never been a massacre of a village. And it has been so long, has anyone from the government come to investigate? It is better to count on outsiders than on yourself, Fu Xiaoxiao sneered. The princes and uncles in the capital competed for power in the capital because they were older than the prince. Does not take the people seriously at all. Nowadays, the border gate relies on the prince and General Xie. The war is tight and they have too much time to take care of themselves. Where can I distract myself from killing bandits? Besides, the news she received, these gangsters. They are indeed barbarians. There is little information, and we don't know what is going on outside. If there are barbarians, there will definitely be more than this group, and they will definitely be searching for food everywhere. The village chief calmed down and said loudly. Yanchuan, you have read the military manual and led everyone to practice. We cannot bury this batch of weapons. The rest of the people will follow me. The village chief named a few respected people, thought for a while, and squatted down again. He glanced at Miss Fu secretly. Sushui, do you want to go to the ancestral hall to play? The village chief coaxed her with a smile. What's there to do in the ancestral hall? Sushui hung on Fu Xiaoxiao's lap. There are ancestors in the ancestral hall, and there are many signs to play with. It's still cool inside. The village chief coaxed carefully. This is the little treasure of the village. When she comes, Miss Fu has to come too. Village chief, you can't enter the ancestral hall. Old Li stared at him at the entrance of the village. Then don't go in. If you don't go in, you'll be out of sight. The village chief spat. Hold Sushui and walk to the ancestral hall. Sure enough, as soon as Sushui left, Fu Xiaoxiao followed. The villagers were all surprised. This was the only girl who could enter the ancestral hall. Quan Niang, your girl is very powerful. She was taken into the ancestral hall by the village chief to play. Someone hurriedly went to Lin to report the news. This Wangjia village has been established for more than 300 years, but no girl has ever entered it. Old Man Yan and Yan Zioki, who were covering their heads, were also here. Why haven't you seen your second uncle for a long time? Sushui muttered, and Old Man Yan paused for a moment without saying anything, then turned around and left. Yan Zioki's eyes fell on Fu Xiaoxiao and disappeared in a fleeting moment. Miss Fu, he nodded to her. Fu Xiaoxiao sneered and pulled Sushui into the ancestral hall without looking back. Yan Zioki pursed his lips to hide the darkness under his eyes. Miss Fu, please sit down. Although you are a woman, your status is valuable, so entering the ancestral hall is nothing. But Sushui is a junior in the village, and you have to pay homage to your ancestors when you first enter. The village chief quickly invited Miss Fu to sit down. On one side, Miss Fu has a lazy and luxurious appearance, and everyone knows that she has an extraordinary status. These days, there are many young people hanging around in front of her. I heard that Miss Fu is only 13 or 14 years old. That would be even easier to fool. Girls aged 13 or 14 are most easily confused by love. If she falls in love with someone, wouldn't it be a good idea to get engaged and get married as early as her hair? It is said that she comes from an extraordinary family and is a well-known family in Beijing. Sushui stared at everyone in confusion. It's okay to say goodbye. But she is an eloquent person. Can these ancestors withstand her worship? It's just a girl's picture. The village chief praises her too much. She is still an abandoned child taken in by my Yan family. The village chief must not ruin the feng shui of our ancestral hall. Old man Yan's face was serious. The boss's family just accepted this girl's picture. A rebel bone was born. Your house was struck by lightning, so why do you still practice feng shui? Fu Xiaoxiao said casually. Old man Yan's face suddenly darkened. The village chief didn't say anything, he just put a futon for Sushui. The younger generation must bow when they enter the ancestral hall. It should be nothing, right? The village chief felt a little confused. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 36. Chapter 36 stunned the audience. Sushui tilted her head and glanced at the ancestral hall. The knees bent and there was a snap. The moment the little knee just fell. A crisp sound. Everyone was sitting in the middle of a row of ancestral halls, and they turned around in fright at the sound behind them. I saw the ancestor's tablet in the center fell straight to the ground, covering the words in the middle. The village chief's eyes twitched. He was just standing at the end and saw with his own eyes that the ancestor's tablet fell down with a snap. I saw the little man kneeling in the center with a cute look on his face. Village chief, shall I kowtow? The baby with a milky voice was very serious, so he just kowtowed 3 times. It shouldn't matter, right? Yanling is born with heavenly support, and only heaven and earth can bear her kneeling and worshipping. These ancestors can also be regarded as the elders of her adoptive father and mother, and they also have some connections with her. Sushui was about to kowtow, but the village chief's heart skipped a beat. Hey, wait, forget it, just kneel down. Why are children kowtowing? The village chief hurriedly picked her up. At that moment, he even felt a chill. Village chief, this is against the rules. Every descendant comes in and bows to him. An old man advised. It's okay, our heads are worthless. Sushui's can't be broken. The village chief directly hugged her and walked up to the right position. The eyes of all the old men jumped up. Old man Yan was so angry that his lips trembled. He felt that the village chief had deliberately slapped him in the face. Her head is a brain, is our head a fool? An old man touched his head and wondered. Okay, that's the end of it? Sushui doesn't count. The village chief wanted to say that Sushui doesn't count as a member of the village, but he seemed to remember something and swallowed the words. Sushui doesn't have to kowtow when he comes in from now on. Village chiefs in remote areas have a common saying. Even if they were unwilling, no one dared to question it in public. Sushui sat next to the village chief. Her little feet could not reach the ground and were dangling on it. Old man Yan's face was gloomy. He and his son could only be at the end, still standing. The elders in the village are here, so let's keep the story short. No one knows what's going on outside now, but the lack of information is definitely not good for us. I will send people out one after another in the next few days to inquire about the news. What Miss Fu said is probably true, then we must deal with it as soon as possible. The village chief sighed. There have been constant natural disasters in recent years, but the court has done nothing. Is the court ignoring us? An old man asked dissatisfiedly. In the 3 years since the natural disaster, apart from His Highness the Prince, who has rescued several disasters, how has the imperial court taken care of us? What's more, His Highness the Prince is still fighting, and food is even tighter. How can we distract ourselves? The village chief pressed his eyebrows, and passed the border. He has great respect for His Royal Highness. Your Majesty is old, the princes are competing for the heir apparent, and it only pits us common people. Be careful what you say. The village chief glared at him before everyone stopped talking. Fu Xiaoxiao remained indifferent throughout the whole process, without any emotion. Sushui remembered part of the plot. As we all know, the Queen Mother and the Crown Prince are not favored, and His Majesty hates the Queen extremely because of the situation in the court. Your Majesty has a little cousin who was brought into the palace 3 days after the Queen entered the palace. The imperial concubine doted on the harem alone and gave birth to the eldest prince and the second prince in one fell swoop. His Majesty favored his concubine, and the court was uneasy. 3 admonishers were killed in the Jinluan palace, so His Majesty favored the Queen. Fortunately, the Queen's physical condition was excellent and she became pregnant with the Crown Prince that year. That year, the eldest prince was already 16 and had already given birth to his eldest son, who was the male protagonist and the future regent. This also led to the fact that the prince was young and had difficulty walking. At the age of 9, he went to the border to earn military merit. Had it not been for the later male protagonist meeting the female protagonist Fu Bao, the prince would have been the big winner. Sushui sat in the ancestral hall and everyone began to discuss. The wall near our village will be built soon. Yan Hansheng is good at archery. He can choose 12 good players to practice. When the time comes, he will stand at the highest point of the wall, in groups of 6, and guard it in shifts. Second brother, Bang Bang, Sushui suddenly extended a thumbs up. My lord, there is no place for you to interrupt, old man Yan suddenly said viciously. The person chosen by the village chief will definitely be of great benefit. He wants to leave this to his obedient second child, not to the eldest family. The village chief glanced at him. Elders are talking, so don't talk too much. Old man Yan's face suddenly turned red. He is usually a grandpa at home, but at this table, he can also be at the end of the table. Only worthy of watching. Sushui, your second brother is Yan Lang, right? He seems to be only 13 years old. Does he know how to bow an arrow at such a young age? The village chief asked, lowering his head. Sushui thought for a while. Better than Dad. Daddy learned archery through practice, but my second brother was born with it. A few years ago, she had seen her second brother pick up a stone and hit the fruit on the tree. It will only get worse in these years. Children, don't talk nonsense. Your father is an old hunter and has practiced archery for decades. How old is Yan Erlang? I'm afraid he can't draw the bow. An old man shook his head, but the little girl was talking nonsense. Sharp. Is it true? You can tell if you call me over and try it. There are bows and arrows hanging in the ancestral hall, and Yan Erlang should be guarding outside the door. Go and call people in. The village chief didn't say much and just nodded towards the door. The man at the door was about to go out. When Yan Lang came in, he saw her sister holding a bow that was almost as tall as her and looking at him doggedly. Urkuo, I want that bird's nest. Sushui pointed to an old tree in the ancestral hall. There were no birds in the bird's nest, but the nest was still there. Yan Lang looked at everyone and then at his grandfather. The old man was speechless. Try it, Erlang, the village chief said, holding Sushui's hand. The moment Yan Erlang picked up the bow, Fu Xiaoxiao stood up straight, with slightly sharp eyes and a slight frown. Yan Lang was only 13 years old, and he usually played with his sister. She always thought he was an ordinary farmer. But the moment I picked up the bow, my whole aura changed instantly. That bow seemed to be integrated with him, as if it had been integrated into his soul, and it fit perfectly with him. Whoosh! The bow and arrow brought up a sharp force, heading straight towards the sky. You can even hear the sound of breaking through the air. Fu Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. I saw the bow and arrow passing straight through the bird's nest, passing through the middle, falling from the tree, and landing in front of everyone. Everyone's eyes widened in surprise. It seems that he never thought that the son of the Yan family was so powerful. Just as the village chief was about to speak, Sushui pointed to the tree path again. Brother, I want the top leaf, don't want it to be bad. I saw her sister-in-law second brother grabbing the arrow again. The sharp arrow tip cuts straight across the tiny petiole without damaging the young leaves at all, and then falls floating down. The scene fell silent. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 37. Chapter 37 Shocking. My dear, Erlang of the Yan family is better than. Is he more powerful than his father? How old are you? 13 years old. Why haven't you heard of it before? The village chief looked happy and was about to speak when he saw Sushui pointing at the sky. Second brother, I want you to cover your eyes and shoot down that bird. Everyone looked up and then their faces darkened. Girl Sushui, are you trying to embarrass your brother? We can only see a small black dot on that bird. You still have to cover your eyes, because the bird has wings. Even a sharp archer cannot do it. I want it, I want it. Sushui pursed her lips and looked at her second brother with tears in her eyes. Yan Lang immediately surrendered. Second brother, try it. Second brother, try it. Sushui won't cry if you don't cry. Everyone immediately covered their faces. See how fake she was pretending to cry. Do you actually believe it? The village chief covered his heart and took a step back. I'm a good boy. Are there people like this in Wangjiakan? His eldest son has also joined the army, and none of the sharpshooters in the military camp are of this level. Fu Xiaoxio's figure had straightened up, his folded hands had already been lowered, and he looked straight at Yan Lang. Looking at his eyes, which were surrounded by a piece of black cloth, he tilted his head slightly, as if he was listening to something. Fu Xiaoxiao clenched his fists and pursed his lips. At this moment, the delicate air on his body faded silently. It was actually a little more solemn. Yanjiro was blindfolded. He thought he would disappoint his sister. But the moment he actually covered his eyes, he seemed to be a little different. The eyes cannot see, but the ears seem to be infinitely sensitive. He heard the chirping of birds, the whispers around him, and the sound of the breeze blowing through the leaves. Gradually, I heard it farther and farther away. He seemed to hear the sound of birds flapping their wings again. He raised his bow. He shot an arrow wantonly. At this moment, Yan Lang seemed to have found his own way. He didn't know that at this moment, he had become infinitely taller, as if he was shining in the crowd. Flop, flutter, the bird flapped its wings and landed leisurely. There was no sound in the crowd. Yan Lang pulled aside the black cloth and squinted his eyes slightly to adjust to the bright light. Seeing the little bird falling with drooped wings, I immediately laughed. I'm afraid that if I shoot it to death, you will feel bad. I only shot the wings. Now, my second brother will raise it for you when you go home. Yan Lang smiled and gave it to his sister to make her happy. Everyone was speechless. You are already a marksman. Is the focus now on your sister's decision to raise birds? The village chief opened his mouth in shock and was speechless for a long time. Is it true that our village will not bury him? Asking such a sharpshooter to teach a group of new people isn't it too wasteful? The village chief was shocked. Erlang, does your father know about your skill? When did you master it? The old man in the village was so shocked that he couldn't open his mouth from ear to ear. Your dad, I remember he trained for 2 years. Practice it to beat fruit for my sister. Dad? Dad doesn't know. Grandpa should know, right? Back then I said I wanted to do martial arts, and Grandpa said I was born to forage in the crop fields. Yan Erlang looked at his grandpa with a smile. Old man Yan's face turned red. Grandpa thought you were joking. Old man Yan's face was trembling. Yan Lang came to see him 2 years ago. He said that he wanted to go to the town to learn martial arts. He felt that he had some talent for martial arts. What did he say at that time? He said, your third uncle is a scholar. In the future, our whole family will count on your third uncle to prosper. What talent can you have? You are just a descendant of a farmer, and you have to work in the fields all your life. What's the use of learning that? Just provide for your third uncle well. Don't fantasize, don't daydream. He also said these words to his eldest brother back then. The eldest brother originally wanted to study, so the village master even taught him free of charge for a few years, and even personally came to persuade his grandfather to send him to school. They were all rejected by Grandpa. Since then, he has never mentioned it. A big house is only suitable for digging food in the ground. Old Man Yan felt that everyone's gaze at this moment was like a loud slap on his face. The beating made him dizzy. Yan Zioki gently supported Old Man Yan. Erlang, don't blame Grandpa. Grandpa has a heavy burden, and he is doing it for this family. Yan Zioki speaks in a gentle manner, and usually stays at home and does not come out often. But because he is the only scholar in Wangjiakan, everyone respects him on weekdays. Yan Lang chuckled. Yes, if I had taken the martial arts examination, my third uncle would not have had to take the imperial examination. After all, my parents had provided for my third uncle. If you can get ahead, why would your parents leave their son alone and support their younger brother? The same is true for the eldest brother. Once he enters school, his parents will definitely give up his third uncle and provide for their own son. The burden is heavy because the entire Yan family is counting on Da Fang's hard work. My father and mother are both honest and responsible people. Whenever the family needs labor, they have the big house. For so many years, Da Fang worked hard for the Yan family without complaint, and all his earnings were for the Yan family. Later, Sushui came to the Yan family. Grandpa was dissatisfied that the eldest family loved Sushui and refused to dedicate himself to the Yan family. This is why Grandpa disliked Sushui. With Sushui, they learned to hide money secretly and buy clothes and snacks for Sushui. With Sushui, they learned to talk back. With Sushui, they began to rebel against Grandpa, so Grandpa hated Da Fang. If the eldest brother achieves fame, the entire Yan family will have no one to contribute. If I take the martial arts exam, I will rob the third uncle's resources, and the big house will be even more uncontrollable. How could Grandpa allow this to happen? There is never any reason for partiality. After hearing this, Yan Zioki's brows became slightly cold. We are all from the same family. The third uncle passed the exam and is no different from the big family. Dad has always been fair, Yan Zioki said with a smile. Yan Lang smiled and said nothing. You certainly think it's fair that the whole family can support you alone. Erlang, good job, you actually have such a skill. What a good boy, our Wangjia village is a good Erlang. The Yan family is from a foreign surname. The old man has always felt that he can't fit into Wangjia village, which he fled from the famine 20 years ago. Now I am watching the big house blending into the village, but I am so heartbroken that I almost vomited blood. The village chief tells you something. You choose 12 people in the village to learn archery from you. From now on, you will be the captain. You have to choose carefully. I will select another 30 people to patrol the ground, in groups of 15, rotating during the day and night. Everyone in the village who is over 15 years old must set aside an hour every day to learn some simple martial arts. Learn to protect yourself and the village. As soon as the village chief finished speaking, everyone started buzzing. Village chief, if you are over 15 years old, you should study for an hour every day. Can women study? Aunt Lu asked. Learn, women are more dangerous than men. Think about Linshui village, do you think you should learn or not? The village chief looked at everyone. Everyone was silent for a moment. The scene in Linshui village makes me feel cold all over just thinking about it. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 38. Chapter 38. Moving to a new house. Women can use skill and be more careful than men. Protect yourself and your children, I believe you can do it. Everyone said nothing anymore. If the barbarians come, they will not pity you because you are a woman. On the contrary, it is the worst, life is worse than death. We have no objection to the whole village practicing martial arts. We can choose 12 archers and 30 guards, but that won't disturb our own fields. Butcher, who rubbed his hands and his eyes shone. The village chief didn't know what he meant, so he immediately said, the selected guard team will receive 1 tael of silver and 30 kilograms of grain every month. The village will get whatever it takes. He took the things that were moved out from Hefeng village. 500 taels and 3,000 caddies of grain were left. When there is no longer a shortage of food in the village, each household can pay village protection fees and everything can be maintained. The villagers' eyes suddenly lit up. Grain used to cost 10 cents per caddy, but now it costs 60 cents per caddy, but you can buy a lot for just 1 tael. Besides, there are still 30 kilograms of grain, which is enough to feed a family of 3 for a month. We, the village chiefs, also need to sign up. Yes, we need to sign up too. Okay, let's wait until the specific regulations come out tomorrow. The archer is looking for Yan Erlang. The village chief waved his hand without looking at Old Man Yan's face. Old Man Yan moved his mouth and wanted to say something, but Yan Lang was pulled away affectionately by the villagers. Obviously, he is the biological grandfather. We are all one family, Old Man Yan murmured. Fu Xiaoxiao chuckled disdainfully, looking at Yan Lang's back with a smile in his eyes. There is no other 13-year-old sharp archer in all of Dai Viet. Your second brother is lucky to meet you. If the little girl hadn't strongly recommended her brother today, I'm afraid such a good talent would have been buried. Sushui's eyes dimmed slightly. In the original book, the elder brother was buried. I am lucky to meet my second brother. Those people are really barbarians. Sushui looked up at him. 9 times out of 10, Fu Xiaoxiao said lightly. The little girl frowned. The little girl is frowning too much. Be careful, she will grow up to be an old lady. She is already fierce and it is difficult to marry, but it will be even more difficult in the future. Fu Xiaoxiao glanced at her and said with emotion. No one wants you. I'm going to curse you in the name of my fiancé. Sushui stamped her feet angrily. My little face turned red with anger. When Sushui came home, Yan Lang was sneaking back from outside. As soon as he entered the door, he looked around and closed the door. Second brother, are you a thief? Hush, everyone in the village is looking for me. Yan Erlang's face was red, but his eyes were surprisingly bright. He never knew that he could be needed in this way. Hey, I can't make a blind choice. Since the village chief has entrusted me with an important task, I must be worthy of him and the people of the village. There is also 1 tael of silver and 30 kilograms of grain. The 13-year-old boy is at a time when he is eager to prove himself. He is very happy to be able to share the burden for the family and earn food. Sushui saw her second brother happy and grinned. The village acted quickly. The village chief selected 30 strong men, practiced and patrolled day and night, and gradually got on the right track. Some people looked down on Yanjiro before, but he was really talented in archery, and he was extremely talented. Even if Fu Xiaoxiao has such a venomous tongue, I can't help but be amazed after seeing him. What a good seedling! Of the 12 people he selected, some were initially dissatisfied, but after a trial, they all became frustrated. The village began to build a wall, which was covered with thorns from the mountains. The entire wall was covered, and a trap was dug underneath. A bear trap was placed inside the trap and hay was spread over it. People in the village tacitly never go near this place. Fu Xiaoxiao also left Wangjiakan at the end of July. That day, dozens of troops wearing silver armor and carrying swords at their waists came to Wangjiakan. When I saw the high city wall, I was silent for a long time. Their master, even when he was living abroad, he could encounter such strange villages. This thing is better than the protection in the town. The soldiers greeted their master outside, and the whole village came out to watch. Yan Sushui rarely relied on anyone, but during this period of time, she ate, lived and slept with Fu Xiaoxiao, and he had already regarded her as his best friend. At this moment, she pulled Fu Xiaoxiao's thigh and cried with tears in her eyes, "Will you come back?" Her big eyes were filled with tears, and her hands were holding her thighs tightly. The soldier's eyes widened. How could anyone get close to the master? He even wiped his master's legs with snot and tears. Fu Xiaoxiao was silent for a long time, looking at the glistening snot on the corner of her skirt. Ification. I'll come back to see you after the new year. I don't know, I can still find time to stay for a while. Fu Xiaoxiao hugged her and whispered. The situation in Beijing is not good, and he is afraid that he will have to stay in Wangshan Mansion for a while. Wangshan Mansion is located at the very edge of the northwest, the poorest and most remote area. Really? Then if you hook up with me, whoever doesn't come will be a puppy. Sushui's eyes lit up, and her nose started to bubble. Fu Xiaoxiao. He glanced secretly at the attendant behind him. The attendant immediately looked at the sky and the ground at the tips of his shoes. Hello, is this still the master? Hold the little girl tenderly, her smile was like 2 pounds of liquor. Fu Xiaoxiao coughed lightly, and all his subordinates lowered their heads silently. They looked at their master helplessly and raised their fingers with the little girl. Hang yourself with a hook, and it won't change for 100 years. You must come to me. Sushui shed tears and looked up at her. Okay, Fu Xiaoxiao chuckled. When she turned around, she found that the scholar from the Yan family was looking at her intently. Miss Fu, walk slowly. He felt Fu Xiaoxiao's gaze and said softly. Fu Xiaoxiao left without even raising his head. As Miss Fu left, the villagers also began to discuss who Miss Fu was. Some people even speculated that Miss Fu was the daughter of a noble family in the capital, or the princess of some kind. At the end of August, the Yan family's house was officially completed. The houses of the people in Linshui village are also located on the outskirts of the village, but they are also within the wall. I didn't expect to live in such a house in this life, Guan Niang, I really didn't expect. Yan Hansheng stood at the gate, crying with excitement. The Yan family's new house occupies a very wide area, and even has several side rooms, which are used to store sundries on weekdays. You have suffered a lot these years, Wan Niang. It's all over, sir, and our lives are getting better and better. Today we move to a new home and tomorrow we harvest new rice. We have hope for the future. The village chief seemed very anxious during this period. The rice was not fully mature yet, so he decided to harvest rice uniformly. I went and bought 2 strings of firecrackers. Yan Chuan said with a smile. He also found red paper and wrote a new couplet, which looked very festive. I never noticed before that there are actually a few packets of sugar in the corner, weighing 4 or 5 kilograms. I also wrapped some small red envelopes with a penny in each. When the neighbors come over to warm the house, we will sprinkle them out. There is a food shortage and there has been no wedding event in the village for 3 years. No one dares to waste food with dignity at this juncture. Food is life. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 39. Chapter 39. Feeling proud. On the first day of August, the Yan family congratulated them on their new move. 3 years after the disaster, there has been no happy event in the village for a long time. Now that Yan Chuan is getting older, Mrs. Lin also has to plan to marry her child, so this housewarming will not be a big one. Only invited a few close relatives and friends to stay for dinner. It's nothing more than the village chief's family, Aunt Lu, mother, and son. On this special day, Yan Hansheng also invited the old man to stay. You can no longer get along with the old house, but you can't save face. People today pay attention to filial piety. Moreover, it is just a meal, and Mrs. Lin is not that stingy. Even, there was a secret joy in her heart. She has been working as a child in the old house for more than 10 years. The old house only regards her as a free laborer and does not regard her as a human being. With the money she earns, her brother-in-law needs to go to school, but her son doesn't even have to study ethnic studies. The second child wanted to learn martial arts, but he refused in every possible way. Having been kicked out of the house for 2 months, my family has built a new house and bought a field, and life is becoming more and more prosperous. There was even a faint feeling of joy in her heart. Lao Chen was carried here by his second daughter-in-law. Looking around, with a dark face, I saw the spacious and brand new house of the old man's house. The green bricks and green tiles were the first in the village. You are a heartless thing, and even after the house is built, you don't invite your parents to live in it, Lao Chen spat, and the second daughter-in-law hurriedly put her in the main room. Aunt Lu was helping in the kitchen, and the village chief was drinking tea with a group of respected elderly people in the village. Didn't you drive the sun out? Did you not want it yourself? Girl Sushui, you have 300 taels of silver. You said you don't want me to support myself in old age, and you don't want me to pay for a house. This document is still in my house. The village chief glanced at her, and old Chen suddenly stopped talking. Calm down. The woman who was struck by lightning should have been divorced and kicked out long ago. Otherwise, the reputation of Wangjia village will be ruined. The old man took a sip of wine happily. Hey, he hasn't had a drink in 3 years. This Lin family is really good at being a good person and respects the elders of the clan very much. Old Chen's face turned even more ugly. Little Chen originally hoped that her mother-in-law would come and take advantage of her, but when she heard this, she didn't dare to raise her head. At almost noon, everyone in the village came to congratulate him. Some people brought a few eggs, some brought vegetables, and some brought snacks. As soon as I walked in, I was filled with envy when I saw the Yan family's house. Oh, how big is this house? It's even better than the village chief's house. The woman looked around. The walls of the courtyard were all very high, and the rows of houses looked particularly grand. Guan Niang is so lucky. Look at these 7 or 8 houses. It will be enough for a daughter-in-law to live in. Guan Niang is really good at living. Look at the chicken and bacon hanging on the beam. Everyone looked at the row of meat and swallowed their saliva. Suddenly the woman thought about it. Originally, Mrs. Lin wanted to marry her eldest son, but there were several sons in the Yan family, and the eldest son was not favored. The eldest grandson was crowded into the same room with several younger sons. Who dares to marry a girl? But it's different now. This green brick and green tile, the ground is smooth and clean. There seems to be 2 piglets and a few chickens raised in the corner, and there is a lot of meat hanging under the beams. This is the best house. Hey, I remember your eldest is 15 now. It's time to get acquainted with each other. This year will pass in a hurry. Get engaged earlier and have grandchildren earlier. There is a girl in my mother's family. She is 15 this year. He is old, handsome, and good at managing the family. Look, every child has a house, right? If you get married, you will have a blessed life. Several women immediately surrounded Mrs. Lin, their faces full of enthusiasm. Whose family prepares a house for each child nowadays? There are several children crammed into one room. In these troubled times, if you can still build a house, have food, drink, and livestock, these are the best days. Old Man Yan was sitting in the main room, looking at the spacious new house, feeling a little uncomfortable. Please spare me, my aunts. They are still busy collecting grains now. How can they have time to plan their children's marriage? Mrs. Lin hurriedly excused herself by collecting grains. Everyone thought about it and immediately let go of her. Just still warm. Yan Chuan's face had already turned red with embarrassment from these aunties, and Ayu hid in the house with fear. Hey, the Yan family is having an easy time. Erlang is an archer and teaches archery. He has 50 kilograms of grain per month, and Yan Hansheng has 30 kilograms per month. Together, the two of them still have 2 taels of silver per month. Originally Yan Chuan was also allowed to enter, but he refused. Sushui's mouth was stuffed with puff pastry, like a little hamster. She knew why her brother was unwilling, but he still wanted to study. Everything is inferior, but reading is the best. Reading is the best opportunity to change your family. 80 pounds a month is enough for the whole family. Everyone's eyes turned red with envy. Who hasn't seen what Lin's life was like before? In the past 2 days, the whole family has changed drastically. Yan Chuan is becoming more and more handsome and graceful. Yan Lang got his hair skewered in 2 months, and it looks much stronger now. Yan Lang's complexion is rosy, and he doesn't look like he used to have yellow skin and thin skin. Lin's own skin has become much tenderer, making her look several years younger. Her face was red, and her waist and abdomen were slightly bulging, making her appear somewhat wealthy. Zhou looked at her jealously, but did not dare to make a fuss. When are you going to sprinkle the sugar, mother? Sushui pulled the hem of Lin's skirt. My dear mother, the longer the tassel grows, the better it looks. It's even prettier than the Fuhua dolls in the New Year paintings. Sushui, you are so lucky. Whichever family you fall into, your life will be better and better. Everyone was startled, then looked at the old house, and then at Mrs. Lin. It seems to be a bit of a coincidence. That's what my son will live like if he is admitted as a scholar, Mr. Chen immediately replied. Everyone was immediately flattered and said nothing more. Come and receive the blessing, come and receive the blessing. Mrs. Lin took several children and carried 2 big baskets up to the roof. Everyone was instantly happy. Institutions. Ms. Lin prepared 5 kilograms of sugar, each one the size of a finger, wrapped in oil paper. I also prepared 100 steamed buns, 10 kilograms of fried twists, and 1,000 small red envelopes, each containing a penny. At this moment, grab a lot of it and sprinkle it down. The villagers below, together with the children, rushed in one after another. Wow, I grabbed the Sanhe noodles steamed buns. There are red envelopes and candies, I grabbed the candies. There are twists, so crispy and fragrant. Don't squeeze me, don't step on me. The children underneath scrambled into a ball, and Ms. Lin scattered them in large quantities, making the ground red. Yan Zuzu pursed her lips and wanted to grab it, but she was only 6 years old, and how could she win? Seeing the bulging bags in the ears, I suddenly became short of breath. Grandpa, drive her out. She is an outsider and a bitch. Why should she live in a big house and give her candy and snacks? I want to eat, give it to me. Yan Zuzu rushed forward and grabbed it. This is my family, the candy is mine, and the house is also my family. Your parents should go back and live in the old house. Yan Zuzu immediately twisted his face and started to take action. That's how she robbed before. If she likes it, she can it back. Anyway, grandparents and parents won't say anything. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 40. Chapter 40 Thief. Yan Zuzu's fingers haven't touched the ear yet. He was grabbed by the wrist from behind. The whole person was lifted up by Yan Hansheng. Who is the bitch? Who wants to get out? Sushui is my daughter, she should live in the biggest and best house, wear the best clothes, and be protected by the whole family. Why should she move out? Yan Hansheng, he yelled loudly. She is not from the Yan family, she should get out. She is just a bitch, she doesn't know whose father and mother are the evil ones. Hurry up and give the house to my grandparents and my parents, or my grandparents will beat you to death. Yan Zuzu's eyes turned red with anger. Why did Yan Sushui live so well? In the past 2 months, No one has washed the clothes at home and no one has done any housework. My mother has to do all the washing and even do the cooking. It was all done by Lin in the past. You are working for our family, why do you live in such a good house? She is just a woman without a matchmaker and no employment, so she can only serve us. Yan Zuzu pointed at Mrs. Lin and shouted. Yan Han was so angry that he was shaking all over and pushed her back to old Chen. I don't know, who do you think I am? Do you think of me as your eldest brother or your uncle? Yan Han's Hung was really angry this time. A little child can say such things. How confused have I been all these years? It has caused Guan Niang and me to live a hard life for so long. Yan Han's Hung regretted it. He should not have treated the old man and any expectations. Little Chen looked flattering. Brother, don't listen to the nonsense of the little girl. She is still a child and is not sensible. Old man Yan's face darkened. We are all a family, why bother with a child? Thinking of the sentence about letting grandparents live, old man Yan's eyes flashed slightly. Yes, we are all one family. I am the one who works hard, and I am the one who makes money from hunting. With the money I earn, I can marry my second brother and educate my third brother. It is Guan Niang who brings up the children, and it is Guan Niang who does the laundry and cooking. It is Guan Niang who raises the heirs. Mom, it's you who received the 300 taels of silver. The ones in the family who have the worst food and the worst housing are Guan Niang and my children. Is this a family? I have worked for the Yan family for decades, and now even any junior dares to point fingers and glare at my wife. Is this a family? These words are not something that a 6-year-old child can say. It must be remembered by an adult who often murmurs it in his ears. Dad, the human heart is made of flesh. My son has been filial for half his life and he doesn't owe you anything anymore. Yan Hanzhen's tone gradually became calmer, and his eyes even became a little colder. Old man Yan's face darkened. He dared to take advantage of the eldest house because the eldest son still had feelings for the old house. His eldest son is the most foolish and filial son. As long as he is under control, everything will be easy to handle. But now the eldest son's eyes have no hope, no admiration, only calmness, and not even a hint of hatred. Instead, he was a little flustered. The old house is too shameful. The second daughter-in-law and the third daughter-in-law are all married to the eldest family. I didn't even have to pay for the expenses back then, but he still spent Sui's money. This is treating the boss as a fool. It's not partiality. The second child is a talker and can coax people. The third child can read, and the eldest brother is honest, and honest of course, he is the only one who can win. Someone curled their lips, and the crowd started talking. I have grabbed a lot of Yan family wedding candies today, so I am naturally happy to say good things. Brother, Dad never thought that way. The third child, wearing a green shirt and looking like a scholar, stood behind old man Yan. Sushui curled her lips. Of course I don't think so, because it's you who benefits. When Guan Niang came in, you were not very old. Your clothes were washed by Guan Niang and sewed by Guan Niang. Over the years, does your wife have any respect for Guan Niang? Do you think of her as your eldest sister-in-law? Second brother, your wife is the one Guan Niang and I earned from working for you. Have you ever taken care of Xiao Chen? Even Yan Zuzu can humiliate Guan Niang, and you already know the result after thinking about it. Han Sheng is not stupid, he just doesn't want to argue with his family. But now that I keep tearing open that fig leaf, I realize how cruel I am to my own family. Yan Lauer pursed his lips and said, Brother, she hasn't read many books and is a vulgar woman. I'll ask her to kneel down and apologize to you. Brother, don't blame your parents. After saying that, he kicked Xiao Chen on the knee. Little Chen made a puff and knelt on the ground. You should. Mrs. Chen wanted to curse angrily, but when she raised her head, she saw her husband's blood-red eyes and was instantly startled. Everyone was in mourning. Sushui stared at her second uncle's wrist. Second uncle, is your arm injured? Lin's eyes narrowed, and several children also looked at her coldly. Wang Lizi and a thief broke into Yan's house that day. Yan Ming bit the other man's arm, close to the wrist. Uncle Yan touched his wrist and said with a smile, "I was scalded by boiling water last month. It's not easy to get scars in the summer. It's not healed yet." After saying that, he pulled his sleeves to cover his wrist. Yan Hanshen's eyes darkened and he took a deep look at his brother. That day the village chief summoned people to go to Hefeng village. Each household is required to provide one. At the old house, my father is getting old. The third brother is a scholar and cannot carry it with his shoulders and hands. The second brother comes to beg him, hoping that the eldest brother can go for him. He stayed in the village to patrol. He responded. So that night, 2 grown men left the Yan family, leaving a room full of women and children. "I went to Hefeng village for you. When I asked you to patrol, take care of my house for me. What were you doing that night?" Yan Hanshen's voice seemed to be quenched with poison, and his breath was filled with anger. "Brother, did something happen at home that day?" "Yan Yang had a high fever, so I asked a doctor for her." Yan Lao immediately stood up straight and looked at him nervously. Ms. Lin smiled and said, "What's the matter? Your brother is worried about his family." Ms. Lin glanced at the wound he had covered up and could see it was a burn, but the location was exactly the same as the place he had bitten. This month, she rarely met her second brother. It seems that he rarely goes out. "Okay, your brothers are not criminals. What's wrong with raising your brothers? When they become rich, will they forget you? I made you and piss, what did I say?" Mrs. Chen cried and made a fuss. She should not have married Mrs. Lin, a troublemaker in the family, in the first place. If it weren't for her, the eldest son would be more obedient. "Grandma, please stop talking. It will thunder again later." Sushui blinked her eyes and looked at old Chen with a smile. Old Chen felt a chill all over his body and immediately shrank his neck. "This dead girl is very evil, I'm afraid she will be a disaster." To this day, she can't forget the scene of being struck by lightning. "What a disgrace, you're here to cause trouble on this happy day. You're full if you can't eat any more, go back." The village chief put down his tea bowl and looked at old man Yan with a disappointed look on his face. The older you get, the more confused you become. He was also afraid that these fools would anger Xiao Sushui and get him struck by lightning again. Then after his death, he will not be able to see his ancestors in the ancestral hall. In the Yan family's old house, everyone's character has become crooked. End of this chapter.